Welcome to part 2 of episode 172 of the Tiggy Maximus talks. Um, I did get a chance to go to the roast battle at the La Jolla Comedy Store. It was an interesting show because, we had 5 great battles, and we had some stand-up from Raul Zambrano, Nick BK, Mike Bin, Brian Moses, and your judges, we got Thor, who's actually from the morning show of 105.3 FM. We also have Alexa Fox, notable porn star. We also have, of course, Brian Moses and Mike Vinn rounding out the judges. Actually, no Pat Barker, because I think he was working on the Netflix as a joke, and I think he was helping prepare for the Tom Brady roast, which I actually did see on Netflix. Really good stuff. I really enjoyed that roast. Um, so yeah. Our matchups for the roast battle, we got Umbretta Di Dio going up against Ashley Chalice. We also have Ellis Lynn going against Elwyn Walsh. We also have Babo Ruiz going up against Andrew Parker Davis. Then we have Mitch Ryan versus Brandon Evora, and Alan Henderson versus Matt Eisendroth. So I always enjoy going to the comedy store in La Jolla. Get to see all the great names. Get to see some great pictures inside. Has a nice decor in the ceiling in the middle of the comedy floor. Of course, the stage is very sacred, so nobody can be on the stage and take pictures. So it's a very, very strict rule. I can always respect that, unless Matt or whoever is actually going to allow that, given who I am. So let's start with Raul Zambrano. He has his usual jokes. He did kind of go into talking about his girlfriend was trying to be very suspicious, and then says that I guess Raul makes love like a gay man, and then he called his buddy and said that I think she's onto us. That got a few chuckles there. He did talk about his Uber ride, how Uber driver was very, very dangerous, but he he did talk about how driving people and risking their lives, and also being very badass by drinking from a flask or something, alcohol from a flask, and he gave his ratings for it, and but overall he did get a few chuckles overall. I didn't hear a big ovation of stuff, and I don't know. I think I might have heard most of the stuff that Raul has actually been doing. But overall, this crowd, if they've never seen Raul before, it wasn't too bad. The fact that he got a few laughs and stuff, and he was about a 7.9 out of 10. Next we have Nick BK. So Nick BK, Nick BK, guy did pretty well. He had a few laughs as well. Um, when he hits people with some smart jokes, he did talk about the multiverse, poetry. Um, I always like that one because I get it instantly, and then I think because I laugh first, I think it caught on with everybody. Um, so I like being the first one to laugh, honestly. Um, I actually am very easily amused if you think about it. Um, but yeah, so he did talk about going to the doctor, talk about some of his diagnoses, his prognosis, talked about radioactive Spider-Man, and uh, honestly, I always, I always like this set, and sometimes I do, sometimes will want to hear some new stuff, but honestly, he did get some good laughs from the crowd. I would say he was probably 8 out of 10 for his comedy. Um, Next we have Mike Vin. I think he did throw some new stuff in there. I don't remember most of these bits that he did before. He talked about how he kind of cut off his circulation, trying to tie his shoelaces and stuff, and you know, he was referencing when he said he lost weight. Yeah, I think he said he lost 40 pounds. Guy looks pretty good actually. um, but yeah, did pretty well. Crowd liked him, and honestly, I would say he was an 8.5 out of 10. Um, and then we also had Brian Moses. He kind of did mostly crowd work. He was trying to split up the room in half, figure out what the left side was and what the right side was, who was more fun, who was more serious, who was actually really into the show, and who's just really there just for alcohol and stuff. So, um, overall, just doing crowd work, I would say, 8.25, just to see where the crowd was at. And then, we ended up starting the roast battles, all five. So, um, so started on Bretta versus Ashley. Bretta did start with a fat joke. Um, uh, and Ashley, I think she did more of like, I think it was either Bretta's outfits or her accent or her failed relationships and stuff about, you know, stuff about dicks. So, yeah. Um, this was an interesting one mainly because I think it kind of went off the track with the normal roast battle would normally go. Apparently, it would seem that Bretta actually did all three of her roast jokes in a row, and I think all I heard from Ashley was probably all rebuttals. Um, I don't know if there was an official start to one of her roast jokes, but um, I think that's how it went. Um, I think the judges were pretty split. They did talk about how this was like um, either a fight that takes place in Home Depot or something that would happen at an immigration office or uh, yeah. I heard some zingers, really good zingers coming from the judges. Uh, and I guess this went into overtime, so they were split 2-2. So they decided to do an overtime joke. Um, Bretta got made fun of for her voice, and then I think with Bretta's response or her roast joke in overtime, it didn't hit that well actually. So the judges decided to give it to Ashley, and yeah, I agree with that decision. Ashley won the roast battle. I would say that roast battle was probably, let's say, as 7 out of 10. Um, Next, I believe we had Ellis Lynn going up against Elwin Warsh. Um, in the beginning, before they started roasting each other, I guess they just kind of started making fun of each other's names. L win, L lose. Um, I think there was something Ellis and then something L something. So that was to kind of warm up the roast battle between the two of them. Um, I think Elwin had talked about Ellis looking at the same time old and young at the same time. And then I guess there was something about how she could be into either um, uh, into little boys or she's into I guess older guys. So I'm guessing. And then I think Ellis had a great rebuttal. She actually had said that, uh, so I have choices. That was actually pretty funny though. I actually pretty laughed at that. So, um, I guess this one, it went into overtime as well. The judges are split, I guess, on them. They had some references too. Like they said that this was like an argument over a transaction over at a massage parlor, because I guess they're just referencing that Ellis might be working at a as a masseuse, and Elwin is your typical customer. Um, uh, Now with the overtime joke, I believe Ellis had um, her joke that she did. Um, it I think she had referenced the downward dog as her overtime joke, and then I guess Elwin had talked about something else. But in terms of the judges, they actually gave it to Ellis because they were kind of like they wanted Elwin to talk about the dog thing and Asian people and dogs and something about eating dog, I guess. But the problem was, I guess he simply wasn't listening to what the jokes were, and so they were trying to, criticize him for that. So they gave the win to Ellis Lynn. Kudos to Ellis. That one I would say was about maybe a 7.25 for their roast battle. Um, what else? Bobo versus Andrew. Okay, this one was the best one of the night, mainly because Bobo and Andrew pretty much had some good stuff to say about each other, roast wise. Bobo had mentioned how Andrew looks bigger. He does look like Dahmer. Dahmer ate all those black people and also everything else. And that got a lot of laughs from the crowd. And then Andrew talked about, um, I guess, Bobo's life choices, and then um, the way he dressed, I guess. So it was kind of going back and forth, and think, um, I think that you know, um, I think they were already leaning towards Andrew, but then they wanted to see an overtime joke between Bobo and Andrew, and I think the crowd had said they wanted one more, and so they both did an overtime joke, and they decided to go with Andrew. Um, um, as great as this battle was, I noticed they were not invited up to the Hollywood Comedy Store, so um, so that was interesting though. Um, I would say that roast battle was 8.75. Next battle, I believe it was Mitch Ryan versus Brandon Evora. Um, I think there was a mention of Brandon's ethnicity, probably, and then how Mitch looks like, what he reminds people of. Um, that one was alright. I believe Mitch beat um, Brandon. So that one was okay. Um, I would say it was about an 8 out of 10 for their roast battle. Um, and then we got the last one was Alan versus Matt, and Matt had a joke about Stephen Hawking and Tony Hawk, but he messed up the timing in the words, and that would have hit pretty well according to the judges. And then Alan Henderson just kind of talked about Alexa Fox, and Matt, and Matt's appearance, and um, they voted all for Alan Henderson. Clean sweep. Um, and I think Alexa Fox had something to say about, two guys like Alan Henderson and Matt, which fits into some sort of category in porno. So uh, that was pretty fun. That was actually a nice way to end the night, too. I would say their roast battle was 8.5 out of 10. I enjoyed it. Um, so, um, the next thing I got to see was an improv show. It was at the Adams Avenue Theater. Um, so that was pretty cool because it was produced by the Mockingbird Improv. They have 7 people representing the Mockingbird. I knew Paula Diaz and Belle Fulton. Um, and I want to check it out. I want to see how this improv thing was going to go. It was super fun, hilarious. I recommend it to anyone because it was never a dull moment during all the segments that were involved in all the improvers. So um, there was one called, I believe it was a Connect a Story, and one person from the group is going to point to a person, and then they're going to just, fill in on a story, and then I think the crowd might have had input as to what kind of story they wanted to hear, and then I think Adam, the main guy of the improv, he kept pointing to people to continue the story, and you have to be ready when your turn is called. And what I remembered was Bella was the first one eliminated because they were trying to get down to the last person. Um, and the winner of the Connect story was actually Paula. So kudos to Paula. uh, there were some other ones like interdimensional sports. They had one of the improvers go into the back, can't hear anything, and then people on stage were asking for ideas for topics, and then came up with like golf balls and beach balls, sandals, bowling balls. So like whoever was hidden in the back had to guess what was the topic or the name of the items and what they're doing or something based off of non-English gibberish, which is being conducted by all the improvers or some of the improvers. So the person hidden in the back had to guess all of that stuff. That was pretty fun. There was one, I think it was called New Choice. Another was like Identity Crisis. So they kind of interchange all the improvers, and it was a really fun show. I would go back again, actually, and I recommend to anybody, honestly. I think they're going to do it once a month at that same place, so it works out pretty well. Also, what keeps it going is you have to keep buying alcohol to support this. So buy your alcohol and get some good improv shows. So overall, I would say the improv show was um, I would say it was an 8.75 out of 10. I enjoyed it a lot. And Alex Petit happened to be um, the host, and he introduced us to the improv, and the improv crew just took over. Um, and Adam, I think, is like the main guy, the producer. He's the man behind the scenes, and he's like a well seasoned improver. So um, I guess he works pretty well, and I guess he works well with all these improvers. Probably trained most of them. Um, they're all naturals, so very good as a pro improver. So, and the last thing I went to was a live taping at the mic drop. Um, so um, we had a few comics. The title of this live taping was "Make It a Mic Drop," and this was the nightcap. I think it started like at 9:30 and a little bit over, and um, uh, so the people on this particular live taping was Mikey Perry, Kylie Troop, um, Mina Q, Anthony Davis, Willie Mack, and Jamie Schreiner. So Mikey started off the live taping, did a little bit of crowd work, got to know the crowd, and then he kind of got stuck with this one couple, and it kind of may have thrown him off just a little bit. He didn't really get to go into much of his jokes, but he's more of a crowd work guy, so it was just kind of interesting to see what kind of crowd and what kind of answers the crowd members were going to give Mikey. Um, I would say overall it was probably eight eight out of 10 for Mikey that night. Then we brought up Kylie Troop. She's about to move very soon. Um, she did a lot of her jokes. She had some new ones, and then she had touched on up some old stuff. Crowd was kind of into it. She got some good laughs from a lot of the stuff that she was saying, but I noticed the crowd was a little more chill, a little more reserved. Um, so yeah, um, that was interesting. I would say Kylie was probably an 8.3 out of 10 for a comedy. And then we got um, Willie Mack. Guy, I don't think I've actually seen him before, but I somehow know him somehow. So I might have seen him before. And all I could think of, he's talked about his grandma. And his grandma is like 106. And talked about how his grandmother wanted, you know, um, wanted some dick. So it was like, okay, this is getting pretty interesting. And he had a story about how he was planning to help his grandmother get dick and stuff. And um, he also talked about like grandmothers who plan for the future, and like uh that's just like almost contradictory, just weird, because like you don't have that much time left, and you're not really supposed to be looking towards the future. You're supposed to be living in it now. So Willie Mack did talk about a plumber, a certain plumber, a specialized plumber, I guess on eBay or something, or Craigslist. um, and then he kind of went into it, and then he told a very funny story, and I enjoyed it. I would say Willie Mack was probably 8.5 out of 10. Um, and then we got Anthony Davis. Um, that was interesting in a way, because The guy won the $1,000 mic drop March Madness, so he was the last comic standing out of 24. But how he did a little bit of crowd work and then his jokes, something was very off about this set and the crowd. And it was that same couple that Mikey had a reference earlier. And so this couple might have thrown off a few of the comics. Um, by the way, I brought my friend and got to this show. So, um, um, but yeah, it got a little bit awkward. There was a lot of chill time, but overall he did kind of like finish kind of strong. But overall, I would say Anthony Davis was probably I would say an 8.2 for his comedy. Um, we also have Mina Q. So Mina Quarterman, first time seeing her, she said that she was a lesbian, I believe. I don't know if she talked about being bi, but she did say she was part of a three-way before. Um, but she was just pretty funny, just talking about like how she grew up, her relationships, stuff about the three-way. Um, and overall, she got a lot of good laughs from the crowd. She did pretty well. I wouldn't mind seeing her down the road again at another show. Um, but overall, I would say Mina Q was 8.6 out of 10. Really did a great job. And then we got Jamie Schreiner. She headlined the live taping, and she was pretty interesting. She talked about relationships, her ex, and she sings. She sang like quite a few times with jokes in it, telling the story. And with that, um, crowd kind of got into it. We sang along as well, and um, honestly, she didn't do too bad. But I think there was some chill time in between like punchlines, from what I felt. But overall, she did pretty well. Um, I would say Jamie was 8.5 out of 10. Um, I mean, even though this was a live taping, but I don't know if it was probably the best live taping. They might, because I was told they had a 7 o'clock one, and I didn't go to the one because I was at the improv show, but I was at the 9:30 taping, and I mean, you could put it on taping, but it may not be the best material and crowd reactions for a live taping though. So, just that's just my 3 cents right there, or 2 cents, my $2. Anywho, anyway, yeah, got to meet some great new comics. They're all pretty cool to talk to, and I'll see them down the road. Once my situation it clears up, I'll be more free to kind of go see more of these comics up in LA and San Diego, and more shows to come. Tonight, I'm actually going to the Privateer tonight to see Brian Banks headline tonight, Heather Marie show. And it looks like I'm bringing my nephew, yay! And I'm going to try out some tacos tonight at City Tacos with certain comedians, and I'm going to be at a comedy show Friday night at the Turquoise Europa Cafe. I might be going to the mic drop after that, so I'm going to try to time it well. I'm going to a comedy show on Thursday night at the Jazzy Wishbone in Oceanside, hosted by Kyle Dean. Can't wait for that. I might be going to a show tomorrow night, so Tom Arnold is at the mic drop for the Shindig show with Jimmy Shin. So we'll see how all that goes. Anywho, next time I talk to you guys, I'll talk to you more about Foodie Land, days 1, 2, and 3. Some more sports action, NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, Padres. So stay tuned for all that, guys. You know the saying goes, ba boom. Tiggy Maximus signing off. Baby. There, guys.